Caleb, you are all set.
Great. Okay, guys. So what we want to take a look at, and over about the next half hour or so here, is our Vault Utilities. And this is something that I've been working with a fair amount, and I think it's just so cool because these are some things that IMAGINiT has put together that kind of address a few things within Vault that we either saw as gaps or where customers were specifically requesting, hey, it'd be great if Vault could do X. And these were some things that we kind of said, yeah, we can do that. We can write some utilities that will fill those gaps. So this is me. I'm Caleb Funk. I'm one of the technical team managers on the manufacturing side. I have been with IMAGINiT for about 20 years now, which is probably why there's so much gray in my beard, would be my guess. Every time I look at this picture, I'm like, man, it's just amazing what time will do to you. So I've been doing this for a while, and I've been, like I said, with IMAGINiT for about 20 years. And the utilities, they came along, we started using them about, I'll even say up to 8-10 years ago. And it's been neat to see them kind of grow and change and different things become available as we move through. And I want to kind of get into a little bit of what these do. And there's two types. So there's the utilities for Vault Client, and these extend the capabilities of Vault. They work with Vault Workgroup, Vault Professional. And the reason that we say that, a few of the client utilities will work with Vault Basic, but really they're designed for Vault Workgroup, Vault Professional because of lifecycle notifications and other things like that. It's typically how we're going to use those. These run directly inside of Vault, so it's kind of why I have this screenshot here. We can see that there's a right click right inside of Vault. That's how we get to them. And just as a reminder of what's there, some of these have been around for a while, but these are some of the things our utilities can do. They can create local folders, which would be your working folders. I can just say, recreate those. We can have standard folders that get downloaded every time you log into Vault. We can create folders from templates. We can extract the bill of materials and do automatic PDF creation. That also extends to DWG and DXF. Lifecycle change notification. So that's why we talk about these so much in terms of Vault Professional and Vault Workgroup, because there's specific tools for that. But then why we're here, what we're talking about today is some of the new ones. So we've got some new for 2020. Automatic step file creation. So that same type of workflow that we would use with PDFs, with DWGs, we now have with step files. And we can update template folders. So if we change our template folder, we can push those updates down so that our existing folders match that. And I just want to talk about those two just here for a few minutes, kind of looking at what they can do. And step file creation, if you've used the PDF tool in there before or the DWG tool in there before, very much the same idea. This can be done on demand. And if I do it on demand, it's going to be on a single file or folder. I can do it as part of a lifecycle change, where I say when this moves from work in progress to released, that's when we want to see the step file created. And there's no way to show this, but I just want to mention it. This is an update for 2020 as well. This will use the Inventor Apprentice server, so it's going to use the headless version of Inventor. It won't consume your Inventor license. It's just going to run it in the background to do some of these particular tools. So real quick, I'm just going to go through and walk through the process of creating a step file using our utilities right from here. And so I'll share my screen. And like I said, this is going to be really similar to what we've seen before when we're creating about anything else. If I do the right click, you can see I've got my IMAGINiT Utilities and all the different tools that I have available associated with those IMAGINiT Utilities. And most of these have been around for a while, extracting the bill of materials, creating the PDF, DWG, but now we've got where we can create the step file and generate that step file right from there. So when I do that, it asks me, okay, it's going to generate this step file based off of this particular file that I chose, and I can publish it right back to the Vault, and it's going to be in the same folder that it's in. Or if I wanted to, I could publish this externally. And this, to me, is probably the more common way of doing it, because I would probably want to do that oh, we're done with this design. We want to get it over to our CNC tool, which needs a step file. Or we're done with the design, so we're going to send it over to a third party who needs to use it. In my case, I'll just drop it out here on my desktop, but this is going to publish that externally. When I say OK, all we'll see is this notification that a job was created for that one. And I'll do a little bit of magic here in the background and make sure that job runs and kick that out. So I'll do that in just a second. But that creates a job for me in my job queue. We now have this new job here of creating a step file. And then I'll make that run in the background. So that's all there is to it. We can just do that real quick, right-click, and it generates it, kicks it out, and now it's available. So we can, while I did it here on a single file, I can do that on a whole series. And it's going to do it. I did it too quick. So I was able to bring up my job processor, and it ran the file already for me in just a second there. So it does it very, very quickly. That's now on my desktop as a step file. We'll go take a look at that in a second. What I do want to point out is if I had a whole folder, and these are the folder, this is the information I need to send to that client, that same utility, I can create steps from that entire series, from that folder series. So it would grab all of the files that I would have available within that folder and generate step files for them. This is probably one of the biggest changes to the client utilities that we have. Like I said, there's some behind-the-scenes things, how it uses the job processor. It's using the Inventor Apprentice. But that's the idea. We can create this information out. Now we do have, under my configuration, I'll go to my options for my admin, I do have step options. And I just wanted to point this out that we can change the step format. Typically AP203 is fine. I could add a file revision as a suffix. So if it was Rev A, it would take the name so that it would have Rev A, so we'd have that information. And I can give a default folder out here that it's going to kick this to. So it always gives it, maybe it's a particular watch folder that gets uploaded to OneDrive for external users or anything else like that. We can generate that type of information out and send that out. So it's kind of strange because when I do the right click and send that out, we're not going to see any of this. It just says, okay, great, where do you want it? It's not asking any of that information in terms of, well, is it going to a particular folder? How should we set this up? What format are we going to use? Should I append anything to it? None of that appears. All of that is done right through here so that we've got that information set up beforehand so that we can just generate it out as part of that. And then just out here on my desktop, it's not too fascinating, but I've got a step file. It's going to be that base rail, but it's going to be that base rail as a step. So if I go out here, there's my base rail step file generated out for me. So the utilities, the client side, that's one of the big additions. There is one other thing that I'll point out right here real quick. And that, when I right-click on this, I've got IMAGINiT Utilities. I've got a lot of different things. And maybe I never create DXF. Maybe I only do DWG and I do PDFs, and steps. I don't deal with these URLs. And it's not a big deal, but it's a lot of options because the utilities give you a lot of tools right within there. But I do have the ability now to come along and I can change my utility visibility. So this is just it's more of an idea of working with it at an admin level. But I can take this and determine which utilities I want to see when I right click. So you notice at a folder level, at a file level, I can turn on or turn off different tools within here. So maybe I don't want to see them, maybe I do want to see them. Down here in my detailed tab, I've got that lifecycle preview that's always there. I can choose whether I want to see that or not. So up till now, once you install the utilities, it was kind of all or nothing. They're in, we see everything or we don't. Now we've got the ability to control which utilities are visible to the user. This is stored in a file that can be distributed. So if you as the administrator set this up, it's a file that we can copy to each station so that we can determine who's going to have access to those tools. So the big one, like I mentioned, is that automatic step file creation. Another one is this idea of updating template folders. And I'm just going to do a real quick idea on that and what that looks like. So I've had the idea for a long time, if I go through and I can create folders from templates. So I've got an existing template already established in here, and I could give it a particular project name. And it's called sample project. We'll call it, we'll give it a new name, utility, just for what we're doing today. So what it'll create is the utility folder and all of those. And this has been around for a while. So it created that folder, utility, goes through, and I've got my subfolders already created. So if I have a standard project that I'm going to go through and work with, that's a great way to do that. And I can configure those standard folders right over here. I can determine, how do I want those set up? What do I want that to look like? And I can, not standard folder, I want to go to my templates. Template folder, there we go. That's going to look better. So when I look at this is kind of the sample one that I have, and I can, that's how I'm going to create it. Maybe I want to add one. Maybe I want to update that. Or maybe I want to change how it works. Maybe I want to have permissions copied with it as well. Well, I can now edit this, and I can say, well, I'm going to take that. I'm going to create a new folder called step, right? We've got the step utility. Maybe I want to kick some step files over here. And that is going to allow me to work with this template folders. And I can say, well, let's go ahead and I'm going to add one in and new. This is my new version. And I'm going to go get it right off of here, right off of that utility that I created. So now I've got a new version of that set up because I've got the step in there. My templates are updated, so now I could come along. This one, I don't have it, and I can update that folder from a template. So I've had create before, but now I can go through and update where I can pull in new information for that. And it says, well, what template do you want to use? It'll copy missing files, it'll update the folder structure, it'll do all of that, and I'll use that new sample that I have. So now, under my project example, I've added that new folder to that. So if we make changes, if we make updates, of course we could always create them. Now we've got the ability to update them as well. So super useful tool to get in and create that. So those are the big changes on the client side. Automatic step file, and now if I go through and update those folder templates, that we can have that information set up accordingly. So that's the client side. There's also the server side of the tools. And it depends, as individual user, you're probably going to be using the client side. The server side may be something you never really touch. The client side, as I mentioned, works within Vault. So it's built inside of Vault. We've got right clicks. We've got context-sensitive menus. We push things to the job processor right from there. The server utilities are external to Vault, but they interface with Vault. So most of the time we're going to log in to Vault with these. So if there's different things I want to access, set up, whatever it would be, I would use these tools, log in. These are very much admin tools. They run on the server side, they make updates, they make changes, all of that on the server side. And the server utilities that we have, and most of these have been around, the idea of the command line tool where we can write scripts for the command line using a command shell. We can do, there's a Vault Backup that has a graphic user interface and allows us to set up a scheduled task that, in a pretty intelligent way, where we're going through and just picking the options, and then it creates the batch file and everything for us. The Vault Publisher, which pulls PDFs or DWGs out of Vault to an external location. Vault Security, which gives us an overview of the security. Vault Metadata, which we can export metadata from Vault and then make changes and re-import it. And then the Job Queue, which gives us information on if files are backed up in the queue or where the job queue stands. The two new ones that we have, and the first one is probably my favorite because this is something that I feel like is difficult to get any other way. You kind of have to build it completely separately. You've got to go dig through Vault to get this information, but the configuration export. And we'll do this a lot where we'll go through and set up a new Vault for someone, and as part of that setup, we'll say, okay, we've got the Vault set up, and here, we'll go through and document exactly how everything is set up at that moment. If you've never done that, it's a lot of information to go through, different screens, a lot of things to pull out. What this tool allows me to do is export from Vault all of the information about it. Users, folders, security, right down the line. So this is a really powerful tool. And when we run this, it takes the information and pushes it to a spreadsheet. So if you make Vault changes as the Vault administrator, this is a great way to grab that documentation. We set it up like this, and then 6 months later, whether we've added users or changed security levels, this is something you could run every time you make a change. It's something you could run, whenever, every 6 months. But it just is going to export this tool, and I'm just amazed at the amount of information that we get out of this tool. So again, I'm going to share my screen. And while I have Vault, I've got Vault up here, but I don't need to be in Vault for this. Like I said, these are specific utilities that are going to run very separately. So I'm just going to drop down here. Here's my IMAGINiT Technologies Utilities. And what I want is the Vault config export. So these don't run in the client like I just showed. These are all completely separate, but I'll do the Vault config export. And the first thing I'm going to do is sign into Vault. Now this is all my local Vault, of course. You would have your specific information here. And once I'm signed into Vault, I'm just going to simply, there's not much I can do. I can exit or I can export the configuration. Now this is the screen I had up a moment ago, and I can show the different types of things I want to export on. Maybe it's items, maybe it's change orders. I'm just going to go ahead and choose, I want some folder information, some file information, and I'm going to say OK. So you can see as it runs through, and it does this really quickly, it goes through, grabs the information, looks at the permissions matrix, looks at the categories, rules, everything, and it creates an Excel spreadsheet for me. We all know Excel is probably the most widely used engineering tool. So it's created this Excel spreadsheet, and I'll open it up. So if we take a look, the first glance, like, wow, there's not much here. But what it did is this gave me what server I'm on, the Vault, who did it, when, right down to the build number of what the server is that we're working on, and then some of the standard things that we would look at. Are these basic flags turned on? Are we enforcing unique file names, enforcing a working folder, enforcing the project, gathering some of the information I have there? And then I'm going to go take a look over here at, I just have a couple of groups. I've got a project group and then everyone. And then this is where it gets just so interesting to me. If I've created custom roles within Vault, you can see I've got every permission that role is assigned to. And this is on a per Vault basis. This is every user that we have, all of it extracted out and given in here. The next one is folder categories, and I don't have any. So simple enough. It says, well, there's not really any folder categories, but file categories, it shows me the file categories I have, what properties are associated to that, what revision schemes are associated to that. So for engineering, here is all of the properties I have associated to my engineering category. For standard, for Office, I don't have any rules for folder categories. It's literally blank, but my file category rules, I've got one that says if it's an engineering file and ends with IPT, then it needs to go to engineering. If it ends with doc, it needs to go to Office. Again, it extracted this right from my Vault setup. All of the properties that I have set up are within here. How they're, whether they're required, how many times they're used, where that, all this information appears right within here. And then I get over here, this is just a list of the different values that are available in their property compliance and so forth. The life cycles, this one is huge. I can see that for my flexible life cycle process, I can see that work in progress is my default. Its released files are the ones that are marked as released. And then what I think is so interesting is what are my purge restrictions, the first one and the last one. Who's allowed to see it? Who's allowed to write to it? Who's allowed to delete it? And then the default comment. If it's under released, everyone can read it, but they can't write to it or delete it. And the default comment is released to manufacturing. So what a great way to understand what you have set up in this format. Otherwise, you're going to go through each of these dialog boxes to figure this information out. And then this gets really complicated. This is the life cycle transitions. When it goes from here to here, this is what actions you take. This is what security's on it. This is what's available. But this quick export gives me so much information. And if you've ever worked with a Vault, whether it's one that you've set up and you thought, man, why can't I get access to this folder? Where's that at? And you need an understanding. It's a wonderful tool that we can go in and review that information. Again, it's just simple export, pulls this information out, and allows us to use that. So the Vault configuration export, probably my favorite one, because that's the type of information as a Vault administrator I'm looking to gather all the time. It seems like it's just so common that I'm going and trying to understand what's going on with, who's set up, what folders do we have, what rights do they have. All of that information is exported from that. Now we have another one, and this is something that I've been asked about a couple of times. We get the Vault set up and everything's good to go, and the engineering manager says, hey, can I be notified? Can I go somewhere and see what files have been changed and who's been working on them? And the answer is no. You can go to a file, you can look at that file's history, but there's no place in Vault to say, hey, show me the last 10 files that have changed. Show me anything that's changed since yesterday. Show me anything that's changed since last week. Well, now we can. And not only can we run a report like this, but we can set this report up so that when changes occur, an email is generated for us to let us know changes have occurred. And this is part of our Vault file notification tool. We can subscribe to changes on folders. We can say particular folders. We can set up particular, I only want to look at engineering files in a particular folder. All of that is possible with this particular tool. And again, I'm going to share my screen so that we can take a look at this. We don't need to see that Excel anymore. So I'm done with my configuration export. The simplicity of this tool, again, surprises me for the amount of data that we get out of it. It's just a wonderful tool for that. Since these are external tools, I'll go find them again. And of course, these could be out on my desktop or anywhere else. I just have them within here. GHI, there I go. And I want to take a look at the Vault change summary. So I'll bring that up. So under my Vault change summary, one of the first things I need to do is sign into my Vault, right? Since these run externally, we always have to sign into the Vault. We'll go ahead and let that log in. And now I can set up, I've got an existing notification here. I'm just going to edit that one, I guess, for right now, just to take a look. But I can say which folder do I want to look at. And this is looking directly at Vault folders. So it's going to go through and look at a Vault folder. Actually, I changed my mind. I apologize. I am going to create a new one. I'm going to add one here. And the reason is I'm going to do a test on the one that I have, and I just want to see that. But I can say, all right, well, there's a particular project here in Vault, this car seat project, let's say, that I'm working on that I want to see changes on. And I'm really only interested in IPT files. I just want to know when files have been changed there, and they need to be in the engineering category. So anything that changes in that folder with an IPT file, go ahead and email Caleb. We'll just email, and yeah, it's fine. We'll add that. So now I've got it where, as it takes a look at it, if something updates and changes, I've got my email set up so that it's automatically going to email me and let me know a change has occurred in there. Now I have this other one. I'll just do a quick test on this other one that I have to give you an idea of what that looks like, and I'll say anything since, we'll go August 15th of this year. Well, I want to see any changes. And this is looking at my entire vault for anything in engineering. So it's looking from that top level down. It's not filtering for file names. It just has to be in the engineering category. And, I've had 0 file changes. So let's drop this back. I thought I'd changed some since July. There we go. So it shows me what files have changed, who changed them, and at what time. So I know there was one assembly, 8 parts, and then I had a couple folders that I've had an update within here. And I can see that which version it was, which revision it was, what folder it was in, who did it, and the date that it was done. This is exactly what the email looks like when it gets emailed to you. So if you're trying to track, again, status on a project, what's been added to it. Now this just looks at changes, so it doesn't give me an indication of what the change was, but I can now very quickly get a breakdown of a particular folder and get a breakdown of what changes occurred, that changes occurred in that folder, who did it and when. And apparently I was very busy on about a week ago where I went through and made these particular updates and changes to that file set that I had in there. This, again, this would email to you. The email gets sent so you can have a constant update of that. So it's a really great tool that fills that gap that we've heard from customers of how do I know when things have updated and changed? Can I see that things have updated and changed as part of this? So all in all, the Vault Utilities is really a great set of tools. It's just a very, very powerful set of tools, both on the client side for everyday use of whether it's publishing PDFs or publishing step files, creating new folders, syncing folders, and then on the administrator side, oh my goodness, those are powerful. The ability to get in there, see all that information, extract all of that information out of it, understand exactly how the Vault is configured, and now the ability to track changes on particular folders as we go through. So as you're upgrading, if you haven't already upgraded to Vault 2020, of course there's all the new features within Vault itself. This is specifically the tools that we have that can come alongside of that and enhance your Vault experience. So that's the overview of those changes and the different pieces that we've gone through in addition to those tools. Cassie, I don't know if there were any particular questions that have come in, but now's a good time to open it up for that.